Hey guys, when I say that semicolons are my favorite punctuation mark, I'm not kidding. And they can be pronounced either semicolon or semicolon. So if you want to sound a little bit more distinguished, you can call it a semicolon. Anyway, the reason I love these so much is because they are so effective at combining sentences and making them more effective in your writing. So let's talk about how to use a semicolon. So, first of all, a semicolon can join two complete sentences, and it is strong enough to do so without using a coordinating conjunction. And just in case you don't know what a semicolon looks like, this is the period above a comma. We used to use this before, what am I looking for? Emojis were so popular on smartphones. And back in my day, we used to use these to make a smiley face, a winky face, not a smiley face like this. Okay, now it turns it into a smiley face. But anyway, it used to be used to make this winky face. All right, back to business. It can also be used to replace a comma as a super comma if you have so many commas in a sentence that they're doing multiple jobs and they may confuse your reader. And we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So very simple. In this first example, I have two complete sentences, two independent clauses. Fred is a good typist. He makes few mistakes. Both of those are complete sentences on their own. They could stand alone, but they're related enough that I'm going to join them with just a semicolon, okay? No coordinating conjunction is used. It would actually be wrong if I typed in a conjunction here. If I did that, I would need to just change this to a comma. But a semicolon is strong enough to do it without the help of a coordinating conjunction. Same thing here. The rain should hold off until the concert's over, semicolon. There is no reason to reschedule. It is strong enough to join these two complete thoughts with nothing to help it. Okay, here's an even better use of a semicolon. It can be used with a special transition word or phrase called a conjunctive adverb. Okay, using this word or phrase, a writer can combine two sentences into one much better sentence that clearly shows the relationship between the clauses. These are some examples of those conjunctive adverb transitional words and phrases. However, in fact, as a result, on the other hand, furthermore, consequently, we use some of those more than others, especially in speaking. I use, in fact, a good bit, even when I'm just talking, and on the other hand. So this first example, Fred is a good typist, therefore he makes few mistakes. Here I have my semicolon after my first independent clause, therefore, comma, he makes few mistakes. Now, one tricky thing that you have to remember, when you use this type of conjunctive adverb / transition word or phrase, you have to put a comma after it. So it needs to be sandwiched between the semicolon and a comma and between two complete sentences. But it can make for a great sentence, okay? This next one. I won free tickets. I've got a lot of mistakes in this document. To the Broadway play Wicked. However, I gave my tickets to a friend who had never attended a Broadway show. I have, after my first complete sentence here, a semicolon, however, comma. That shows the relationship between this clause and this clause, and it's so much better than two short, choppy sentences. My daughter's soccer team is having a very successful season. In fact, many of the seniors on her team are so talented that they have already signed contracts to play collegiate soccer. Okay, here again, I put a semicolon after my first complete sentence. In fact, shows the relationship between this and the fact that many of the seniors have already signed to play in college. Okay, so once again, I use transition words or phrases that are called conjunctive adverbs sometimes to join together two related clauses with a semicolon and a comma. Okay, great way to vary your sentence structure in your essays. Now, you wouldn't need to use this type of sentence in every sentence, but maybe one per paragraph, two per paragraph would be great. Okay, this is an example of using a semicolon as quote unquote a super comma in a sentence. Basically, this is for the type of sentence where you have multiple commas doing multiple jobs, almost to the point that it confuses your reader. Okay, this first sentence, and I like to do this one in class and have students volunteer to tell me what they would dress up as. but since we're online, I had to make up the names for you. So I've got Ellie, comma, Superwoman, Anne, comma, Queen Victoria, Sarah, comma, a 1920s flapper, and James, comma, a clown, attended my Halloween party in full costume. Okay, so if I did not separate the individuals with a semicolon, that might make this sentence really confusing. I have multiple subjects. I have number 1, Ellie, number 2, Anne, number 3, Sarah, and number 4, James. 4 people who attended, 4 subjects, and I'm separating them from what they're dressed as with a comma. If I also separated each individual with a comma, if I didn't know better, I might think that Ellie and Superwoman weren't the same person. Anne and Queen Victoria weren't the same person. Okay? So I changed those to semicolons to make this more clear for my reader. Okay? Same thing down here with a less fun example. Attending the meeting were Travis Claypool, the mayor, Richard Hernandez, the city engineer, and Sandra Lee, the architect. So instead of separating Travis Claypool, the mayor, and Richard Hernandez, the city engineer, with just a comma, I changed that to a semicolon. If I didn't do that, if I didn't know that Travis Claypool was the mayor, and I didn't because these are made up names, then I would not know for sure that 3 people were at my meeting rather than 6. Okay? So I'm going to separate the whole phrase about Travis Claypool from the whole phrase about Richard Hernandez and the whole phrase about Sandra Lee with a semicolon, a super comma, if you will. Okay? Now, I want you to do this practice. Practice adding commas and semicolons as needed in the sentences. I'm going to add an extra page for those of you who are taking this online to this document with the answers. Make sure you try them yourself before you look at the answers. I'm sure that you've heard this phrase before and it's probably annoyed you before, but if you cheat, you're only cheating yourself. So make sure you try these before you look at the answers. And you will have a quiz on semicolons this week, so make sure you know what you're doing before you take that quiz. Email me if you need any help.